Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today I have a very interesting ASUS here. This is the ASUS Transformer T300 Qi, and this is a 12.5-inch tablet that was kind of an interesting in-between market. It definitely has more features than your average consumer-grade tablet, and the design construction is certainly more of a premium feel using a metal chassis as opposed to a plastic one, and they very much toted their diamond cut edge in the promotional material at the time. This was, in all intents and purposes, designed for that in-between market, and you can definitely see that in the specifications. Regardless of which one of these you purchased, it came with an Intel Core M5Y10C, and that had an Intel integrated HD graphics 5300, 4 or 8 gigabytes of RAM, and that was 1600 megahertz low power DDR3. And that, of course, is soldered to the board. The two main configurations that these came in that differed the greatest were actually in the display panels. So one featured a 2560 by 1440 WQHD display, and then the other one, which is this one right here, featured just a standard but still very nice 1920 by 1080p display. All of these will be touchscreens, and they are tablet 2-in-1. Inside of this tablet, there is a 31 watt-hour battery. This came in two pieces. It first came in a tablet, and then we'll talk about the keyboard in a minute. Let's just do a quick tour of some of the ports and features of the tablet. On the bottom here, we have two magnetic posts that go into the tablet to connect the keyboard. We'll talk more about those in a bit. Over here, you have your power in, a Windows key, a volume up and down. Along the top you have your power button and absolutely nothing else. And then along this side you have what is essentially your input-output for the entire machine. That is this micro USB, micro HDMI, and a headphone microphone combo jack. There is also somewhere on this thing a micro SD card reader. Yep, there it is, right there. So everything is micro. So what made this thing interesting is that it came with this detachable keyboard. The thing that makes it unique about this particular detachable keyboard is that this is Bluetooth only. So the posts along the back here have no connection whatsoever to the computer at all. They do not sync data. There are no ports on this keyboard. There is zero connectivity physically between this and the tablet component. That's an interesting choice. I'm not 100% sure why they thought that was necessarily the best thing to do. Maybe it reduced costs on both of these components. It does lead to a few limitations that we do need to discuss. The very first is actually charging this setup. So if we attach these devices, and they do attach pretty effortlessly, the process of charging this is more akin to plugging in a Sega 32X on top of a Sega Genesis. You first need to have a micro USB power delivery for the keyboard component, so that charges. And then, of course, you have to charge the actual tablet component itself with a separate wall outlet. A charging unit will end up looking something like this. A small pet peeve, but it is something that I will mention here, is that the charging light indicators for both of these are either in an odd location on the top of the device or inside. So if you want to know the charging status of this unit, there's no way to easily look at a glance near or around where power is actually being delivered to the machine. I'll point this out now, but these devices have some pretty significant wobble. I don't know if it was always like that or if that's just use over time. That is either a lot of wobble from wear or some pretty loose tolerances, and I suspect it might be the latter. Because again, there are no connectors that need to make contact in there, so having super tight tolerances other than for the user experience are pretty much non-essential. Let's go ahead and turn the unit on and see what the experience is like. On this unit, and that just could be this one, there is some light bleeding around the bottom edge especially. And you notice that mostly when the screen is very dark or very black. And this is probably one of my first points of contention, is that the Bluetooth doesn't always automatically sync when this thing is booting up for some reason. I don't know if it's this particular unit, but I have to put it into pairing mode usually every time I start it up. Once I'm inside of Windows, I have to go into the settings, navigate to devices. It'll say it's paired, but using the trackpad or the keyboard doesn't actually yield any behavior. So I have to remove the device and then go ahead and repair it. And to repair it, you have to enter this code that it gives you on the keyboard. And if you don't do it within a certain time, it just simply kicks you out. Or if you make a mistake like that, because you don't actually see any input screen. So this pairing method, I get it, is probably par of the course, but it is very frustrating, especially if you have to do it nearly every time you turn the device on. Yeah, it says enter the PIN, but I don't have the PIN and I can't enter it. So now it's really going off the deep end. So if you do have trouble getting this thing to pair, one of the things that you have to do is enter, using an on-screen keyboard, 8 zeros, and then do the same thing on the keyboard and then hit enter more or less within 5 seconds, and the thing will pair successfully. But as you can imagine, that is not ideal to be doing every once in a while. I'm not entirely sure why it gives the grief that it does, but there you have it. Thankfully, it is a pretty smart and quick loading machine though. Ladies and gentlemen, just some quick conclusions here. Even when the keyboard is working perfectly, it's an adequate experience, but the fact that there is no connection and no additional ports means that this thing is really limited to media consumption and online activity only. If you are looking for a device that will happily stream content, check your email, watch YouTube and all that, and it's a good price, then, you know, thumbs up. Keep in mind that these bottom docks are somewhat tricky to find if they're not already paired with a working unit. If you do see a tablet listing, just be aware that these bottom docks can be a little bit difficult to find, especially in the year 2020. But realistically, with all of the adapters that you would need for the lower end processor, the finicky pairing keyboard, to use this primarily as a productivity machine is a really hard sell, and that's probably one of the reasons why many keyboards will have some level of connectivity with the tablet. Nothing would be more frustrating in my mind to have to carry around 2 different methods of charging for one machine, especially when I can't even use a micro USB cable without an adapter to even get power from the tablet to charge the keyboard. I'm sure that there were some real good reasons as to why they did this. I just am not privy to them. At any rate, if you enjoy this sort of content and would like to see more, I'll encourage you to do the big 4. Please like the video, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so the next time strange tablets like this show up, you'll be the first to know about it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.